Hey everyone, so today's video is going to be on the balance patch that's coming next week with the new seasonal hero. I know there's been some content creators that have made videos on this already, so I'm sure most of you know what the changes are, but I'm going to go through them anyway just because I'm going to give you my thoughts, what I think of them, and it's just, more content for you guys to watch, so I hope you enjoy. First things first, there has been a kind of universal change to heroes that have these extra turn mechanics. So someone like Yolanda, on her S2, whenever she grants somebody a bonus turn, it used to be that if you had multiple turns in a round for Yolanda, this cooldown would be reduced. So it's at a 3-turn cooldown. Let's say she used this and then it looped back to her turn in the same round. This would, count as a cooldown turn, but now it's just a round. To make more sense of that, it just works exactly like Shane now. So Shane was the only one who really had this mechanic, but whenever he used his bonus turn, this cooldown wouldn't proc based on turns, it was rounds. So it's the same exact way as Shane works now for the other heroes. So you have people like Yolanda, you have people like Aubry. Aubry gives bonus turns. Holly at S2, Hassel at S2, like all of those things are now round related. This is a nerf for sure. The thing is what I've heard, and I kind of agree, is that this was a nerf to the twins, right? Or at least I think the light twin. I think she's the one who gives bonus turns and stuff like that. Yeah, so I think that's good. I mean, the dark and light twin are just like absolutely busted. So if other heroes that I don't think it's going to affect their usage in any way, not that it's not a nerf, it is a nerf, and I think it truly affects some of these heroes like in Guild versus Environment, especially with that Thunder Punisher talent, where they get extra turns if they've taken so many attacks. This kind of affects your damage a little bit for those heroes. But when it comes to RTA and things like that, or Arena, I don't think it's a huge impact. Maybe it has an impact on Guild Boss. I'm sure it does for extremely high scores, but considering you only really need to get to level 45 for, the nice rewards when it comes to the new shards for light and dark heroes, these shards, as well as the book pages, I think it's negligible. But overall, I guess having all of the skills act the same, similar to Shane's abilities, I guess makes sense. So anyway, with that out of the way, let's get into some of the changes. Alrighty, so first things first, we are going to Evelyn first on, and I think I was just there. No, okay. So Evelyn first on actually gets a really big buff. So her trait here, it used to be all team members' defense was just increased by 30%. It's just a non-removable aura, static effect. Pretty good trait, but with the increase to her trait now, the change is this attack and defense is going to be on the basic trait. So this is a really big buff for her, in my opinion, for somebody who doesn't have her ascended. I think it makes her way more viable in Guild versus Guild defenses. I think she's definitely viable there. I think she's an okay pick in RTA now as well. The teams that really focus on Nero, Zoltan, like this is a really nice buff for a bruiser kind of picking strategy. So I think this is a really nice buff. And then on top of that, if you do have her A2, this Ascension is going to be attack, defense, crit rate, and crit damage. It makes team compositions pretty interesting. even in RTA as well. You can prioritize speed and stuff over the crit rate. Build someone 70% or something like that, and that's not even including masteries for crit rate. Because I don't think people are ever going to ban Evelyn first on. I could be wrong, but I just don't think she'd ever be banned. So building your team like that it could be interesting. So that's the change to her trait. She does have an increase in her damage percentages on her ultimate, but I think that's negligible just because she's never really built for damage. And then also she does have a mastery change where this defense down 1 goes to defense down 2. Again, I don't think that's a big thing. I don't think you're going to be booking her. I think you're just going to be using her for her trait upgrade. So pretty nice change to Evelyn first on. Now talking about one of the OG Light and Darks, Orion. This guy used to be busted, and then he's just fallen off because the power creep has been very real in this game for Light and Darks. But he does get a pretty nice buff to his trait as well, but he does have to be A2 to get it. So this will not change. I think he's not really viable until he is Ascended 2. But his Ascended 2 change actually takes off this, can be triggered separately once per round. It takes that off. So the trigger limit being taken off here is really interesting. I think he becomes a true threat. He's going to be deflecting a lot. He's always going to have that elemental advantage. So, pretty cool. But again, the bummer is that he will need to be Ascended 2. So, that is, I guess, the silver lining. He does have this upgrade to his damage from 100% to 120%. I mean, that's never a bad thing. Having Orion, your damage dealer, doing more damage is definitely a positive. And then this ultimate will have an increase in his shield. I don't know how much it's going to get, but at the same time, I don't think that this shield really mattered. I don't know if it's going to matter now or not either. And then he also gets an additional 15% damage in his mastery. So, oh, sorry. The change is they're taking this out and giving him 15% more damage. So that is a good thing. That's a good change. So ignore what I said on the shield. He's just going to get a 15% increase to his damage on the ultimate if he is booked. So that's pretty nice. Especially if he's A2, I think he could be a nice threat now. All right, moving on to Kelowna. So Kelowna is one of the better Light and Dark epics. I don't have her, sadly. It's showing up in my index because whenever I was getting the early release heroes, trial heroes, that's why she's in my index. But anyway, so her trait is getting upgraded here, where instead of this speed up 1, it's now going to speed up 2, which is 50 plus 50. This could change some things. I don't know how much it affects stuff, but having that additional 20%, I'm sure can affect the turn order if you bring the right kind of team in RTA, or if you build, your defense in guild versus guild or normal arena. It does have an impact. So this is just a nice change for her. She was already good, and then just increasing her trait to have that speed up too. It's just, cherry on top. And apparently this control immunity, even though it said it was unremovable, I guess you could remove it, but now the change to her is going to allow this to not be removable. So small change to Kelowna, but again, she was already a good hero, so it's just an additional buff. So she just gets a little bit better. Now, Abaddon, man, this guy I think got a really nice buff. So this guy's been a guild versus environment king, right? He's also still good in guild boss, although he's been outclassed by a couple people. But when it comes to guild versus environment, he is still boss king. And he's going to be getting even more damage, which is really good. The reason why buffs like this are good all of these kind of guild versus environment buffs is they've increased, the rewards in this game mode, which I think has been really, really good. You get these tokens now that can be used in the shop. You have these Dawn fragments, which allow you to have a chance at light and dark, epics, elites, and legendaries, which I'm going to make a video on, in the future, because some of the new light and dark elites are actually really valuable, and having a chance at getting them from these shards is really good. And then on top of that, being able to just get these legendary books and stuff from higher floor clearances is really good whenever you have these buffs to guild versus environment heroes. And that's where Abaddon shines. So his S2 is getting a cooldown reduction from 3 rounds to 2, which is good because it's just increased damage. This passive actually hits pretty well. So it's just increased damage to his output. And then on top of that, this healing by 1% is going to just be increased damage if you end up booking him. And then his S3 gets a big damage multiplier buff. It goes from 240% to 280%. So really nice. This just anytime you can increase his damage, more damage output, solid buff on Abaddon. I didn't think he needed it, but hey, can't complain. All right, Aubry is next as well. So Aubry, I think, used to be a really strong hero, and again is kind of just fallen off the map. The issue with Aubry is the ascensions on Aubry are not very kind. If you have like an A1 ascension, you need an A5 ascension for Aubry to get speed. So even though Aubry has some of the highest speed in the game, the masteries from books as well as the ascensions are just very unkind. So I think that is what hurts Aubry the most, because Aubry is a pretty good character with the no positive effects as well as team-wide immunity. Really strong, one-of-a-kind kind of character, but that's kind of just a topic for a different day. So Aubry is getting a buff to this trait where any team member under an enemy attack gains 15% of max health. This is getting upgraded to 25%, so pretty good. It's solid. I don't think it really changes anything, to be honest. The S2, we did mention, is going to get a nerf on the cooldown perspective, but now this attack up actually goes up to attack up 2, so instead of the 30%, it's going to be 50%. Nice buff. And then the S3, this mastery is getting changed from damage to actually making the immune buff up to 3 turns instead of 2. I don't think that change matters too much. It is nice though that they're taking the damage off. It's no secret that Aubry's not a damage dealer. It is a pure support hero. So taking that damage off and giving an additional immune is still nice, but I don't think it's going to have a big change. All right, next up is Corrupt Orac. Now, Corrupt Orac is getting a nice change and then not good change. So Corrupt Orac's change, it's weird the way that they say it on the notes here, because it's saying that it has a 50% chance to trigger a defense reduction, and this is nowhere in his basic. So I'm guessing this basic is getting changed to have his basic deal defense down. So that's a nice change. But then on top of that, this mastery change is getting changed from 25% true damage to 10% damage. So this is a nerf. I don't know why they're doing that. I don't think Corrupt Orac is busted. I think he's a strong character, but he's still outclassed nowadays by a bunch of different LDs. So this is, in my opinion, kind of a nerf. I'm guessing that they're going to change that in the future. Okay, moving on, there is a change to Valeria, which is one of the OG legendaries. She used to be really, really strong, and obviously, since the beginning of the game, all of the new heroes that they've released, she's just been outclassed. She's still kind of viable, like in Void Tower Hard for newer accounts and things like that. Still solid in Tulpa, so not that means anything, but she is getting a buff. So here, she had a chance of 50% chance whenever you didn't have any books into this basic ability to land the defense down, and now that's getting upgraded to 100%, so that's kind of nice. And then she has this mastery change. Here they were saying 25% true damage, but I think they just meant that if this is getting upgraded to 100% for defense down, there's no reason to have this effect trigger, and it's just increasing her damage. So it's an okay change. It doesn't really make any difference. And then on her S2, they're changing this multiplier from 100% without the masteries to 120%, and then it gets booked up to 130. So no real change here. It's just, I think for someone starting out, Valeria is going to be a strong choice until you pull some of the better ones, better heroes to go along with your collection. So it is a buff, but it's negligible. Doesn't really make any difference. Hector is also getting a buff, so his speed is going from 105 to 116, and then his S2 damage is going from 120 base damage to 150, so it is a boost, but at the same time, Hector is just one of those heroes that if you don't have, maybe 4 or 5 different other heroes that are way stronger than him, you're not going to be using them. I will say that Hector is kind of nice to have for people, early on for Guild Boss, so his increased speed is going to be nice to help speed tune, to get those bonus turns right where you need them, to make sure that you're getting, the most kind of output that you can from your Guild Boss early on. But these changes don't mean a whole lot for like 99% of the player base. Next, we have Darcy. So Darcy is getting a decent buff. I still think that she's not a very strong unit. Some people are a little high on her, but I know, or at least I've heard through the grapevine, that most people that have Darcy have not been impressed with her. But who knows? Maybe these changes make her viable. So right now, she has this Battle Spirit mechanic where she gets +5 damage for each stack that she has. This is now going up to 10%. So with the increase of this going from 10%, she can have max stacks of 6 whenever she is unascended. So 60% damage increase that is unremovable. It could mean something. I mean, it's definitely a nice change. And then if she is ascended, being able to get 100% more damage, I mean, that is a big number. Whether or not she ends up being viable, in RTA, which is I think the only place that she's viable, maybe guild versus guild defenses. But man, I just don't see it. I think she's just an RTA character, and then she has some additional damage here. So I mean, it plays into what they're trying to do. She is supposed to be a bruiser, so maybe it ends up working out for her. But I'll tell you one thing. I'm not going to be the person who takes that risk to fully book Darcy and see if she can be a viable bruiser unit. So nice changes, but I'm going to wait for someone else to really test her to see if the changes actually matter. Okay, Titan Iceland. So Matson is getting a rebranding. I don't know if it's a buff or a nerf, but on his basic ability, this random stats down is actually getting turned into Ignite. So the thing that I don't know is if this increased damage taken is going to stay here, and then if they have increased damage taken, that Ignite then goes on, or if it's just going to be Ignite on the basic ability. So if the increased damage taken stays, and then on top of that, it's just Ignites, I think this is a good change, to be honest. There's some really nice Ignite comps, especially with the new hero that just came out. He does a pretty good amount of damage, so I think an Ignite comp is viable on Rift of Chaos, as well as some of the bosses or ancient relics in Guild versus Environment. So I do think that this is an okay change. It is still a weird place for Matson to be. He's like a debuffing damage dealer. It's weird. You know, they do have other characters like this, like Bachelard and stuff like that, and Bachelard I just don't think really panned out the way that they wanted to until they released more heroes to go along with Ignite. So, you know, I probably think that this guy is just a support hero, you know, for Ignites and stuff like that. So, being able to apply multiple stacks of Ignite, I think, is going to work out in his favor. So I would probably categorize this as a buff. All right, next up is Gavin. So Gavin, I think, is another viable hero for Rift of Chaos, but he's just been kind of a casualty of the fact that people have already booked out and ascended Rosalie. So I actually think Gavin is a better pick for Rift of Chaos over Rosalie, but like I said, he's just been a casualty of timing, basically. He does have this really nice counterattack that heals himself, does more damage, and he can ignore, you know, up to 90% of the boss's defense based on the amount of stacks up. Now, obviously the counterattack is negligible there because the boss will have 0 defense, but being able to do the damage, you know, ignoring almost the same amount of defense on his normal attacks is what's really, really cool. You know, getting 2 bonus attacks that are ignoring 90% of the defense, if you can. That's what the change is right here. This was capped at 80% per positive effect, and now it's going up to 90. So good change to Gavin, but I just don't know where he fits in because Rosalie comps are already working in Rift of Chaos. So Tashir is another one that is getting a buff. This hero, I think, is extremely underrated. She has this trait that allows your team to get this big speed buff based on the number of positive effects that your opponent has. So she can, you know, really hurt some speed comps by jumping in there if everybody gets all of these, you know, big buffs at the beginning of the turn, which is becoming more and more prevalent within the game. So I think Tashir is actually going to age really well. But she is getting some buffs here. So her speed is going up to 128 instead of 120, so that's always nice. RTA is a really big speed battle, although some of these changes that we've seen today, I think bruiser comps are viable. You know, there's plenty of people within RTA that have been really successful with just building tank compositions. So it kind of defeats the speed meta there. I think this is a nice addition. So, although her kit is somewhat conflicting, right? She does help you win this speed battle, which is cool. And then some of her buffs also help that as well, if you build her fast or something like that. But then she also gets some buffs when it comes to those bruiser comps. So her S2 is getting a buff. So this crit damage up is staying the same, or at least I think it is. Now, it says crit damage and speed up 1 is now getting changed to 2, so maybe this crit damage up 2 goes to 50% and speed up goes to 50%. This can be huge. You know, removing all of those negative effects, there's so many different CC comps out there nowadays too. Like, control effects are really prevalent. So this is a really nice change. On top of that, she gets a big boost to her S3. So her shield is increasing by 50%. Apparently this was applying 50% shield, and now it's going up to 100 based on her health. And then her damage sharing is going from 30% to 50%. So she's going to be like the water version of Ralph. But of course she has to use this S3 first, where Ralph just gets it if he's A5. So that's something to consider. But yeah, this is a really nice buff to Tashir. And I really like her kit and also her masteries. So I think she's, like I said, vastly underrated, but you know, trying to prioritize books on her whenever people need to worry about Rift of Chaos, that's probably, you know, just another casualty kind of thing for her. Okay, so another person that is getting a buff is Lydia. And I don't have Lydia. One of the few red, green, blue characters that I don't have. So she has in her trait that she takes reduced damage based on AoE by 30%. This is getting buffed up to 50%. So just more survivability. I really don't think that she's like a great character anymore. But yeah, it's an okay buff. Coming back to a character that no one has ever liked is Elune. They just, man, this hero just needs a complete rework. It doesn't matter how many times they buff this character. I just don't think it's ever going to be right. So, in her trait is just also really confusing. You know, the way it reads, the way that you could apply sleep, you know, based on chance and chance and chance and chance. But anyway, yeah, I don't think this change is going to matter. But so this trigger chance, right? So it says it has a 50% chance to apply sleep to one random enemy for one turn at the end of an enemy's turn. So this trigger chance, it says scales with this hero's attack and is reduced by 25% per positive effect on the enemy. So what this used to do, I didn't even know that this was a thing, but apparently it was 5% per 1k attack. So if she had 6,000 attack, it would go up by 30%. That's now being upgraded to 10%. So it should be triggering all the time if you have the character at 5,000 attack, right? Because it's already at 50%, and then it scales based on her attack by 10% per 1k attack. Or by 50% per positive effect on the enemy. Instead of 25%. So this should be 100% now. I don't know why they don't just put that. But anyway, that's how they want the character to work. So there you go. If you have your character somewhere in the 5,000 attack range, you don't have to depend on your enemy having positive effects. It's just after their first person takes a turn, she'll randomly sleep somebody. So that's what that new trait does in a nutshell. She then has this mastery change where instead of 10% damage to her basic ability, this is now going to be a 75% chance to apply sleep. That's actually a pretty nice buff. But as you can see, her speed is just really slow. I don't see this person doing anything different. And then her S2 gets a reduction in cooldown. So again, Elune's still completely useless. Hayam is just getting some minor changes. She does have a multiplier from 100% whenever it's unbooked up to 120, so that's fine. It doesn't really matter though, because she is a niche hero. This counterattack, it does do more damage. Now it's going from 100%. I don't know why they say 100% in her S2. It says 85% here, but they say 100 to 120%. So I don't know where that's coming from, but it doesn't really even matter because Hayam is just used for that one thing, which is her ultimate. You know, she has her invincibility on her trait. You take all this damage, you hope she survives, and they don't remove the invincible, or she gets stunned, and then you just counter with a really big ultimate. So Hydrisia is also getting a buff as well. Her speed's going up to 112, which is nice. And then her trait is going from 50% damage on the basic to 80%, and then this 80% to 100%. So pretty cool. And then on top of that, her speed down percentage is going from 50% up to 100. And then her mastery is changing, you know, taking out this trigger chance because it goes up to 100 to increase damage. So kind of nice. This is actually really good for faction wars or faction challenges. She's still viable there, so just increased damage and then having the speed down and stuff like that, all really good for Hydrisia. Malhex, on top of that, is another hero that is pretty decent in faction challenges, and he's also somewhat viable in Batwolf, so he's not completely useless. And then on his ultimate ability, his defense down is going to defense down too. So pretty nice changes. Next is Poros. So another hero I don't have. All that's happening here is he's getting increased multipliers on his basic ability and his S2. Poros is an ROC fire specific character. That's not going to change. It just increases the damage, so it is a nice change, but I still think it's small. Other than that, we do have Tia. So Tia's getting a change. So her trait, it used to need 5 stacks, and now it's going down to 4 stacks to give somebody frozen. And then whenever she's ascended, goes down from 4 to 3, so that's a pretty strong change. And then this is getting a nerf from applying 2 stacks to 1 stack, but I don't think that matters. As long as her percentage to freeze somebody is still where it's at. Tia is actually, again, kind of an underrated character. I think she's pretty strong, so that's a nice change. I do think she's kind of a niche character, but she's pretty good in like the middle tiers of RTA. Next up, we're close to the end here, is Blackhorn. So Blackhorn actually gets a pretty nice buff here. His attack down goes to attack down 2. I think for people that don't have Atara, Blackhorn is definitely a viable hero in some lower ends of Rift of Chaos for the fire dungeon, and even, you know, in the water dungeon as well. So that's kind of nice. And then his S3, instead of doing 3% heal over time, it's going to 5%. So nice changes. Blackhorn is a good character, so I do like those changes there. Oh man, and then my boy Kasim is getting an upgrade as well too. It's not the kind of upgrade that I would have liked, but still, it's not bad. So his health is going up, which is good, because it gives him more survivability. Always nice. And on top of that, you know, his damage kind of scales based on lost health. So if he has more health and he loses more, his ultimate's going to be dealing more damage. So this is a nice change, although you wouldn't be able to see it like on the surface unless you read the abilities. So this will increase the damage of his ultimate by having more survivability. On top of that, this trait is getting changed, which I think is really nice for people who want to use Kasim now, because he will have this dodge up without being ascended, so you won't have to put pots into him or anything like that, which is really cool. On top of that, his ascended effect now reduces the cooldown from 3 rounds to 2. I actually think this is a really nice change, because what ends up happening is he starts with this this dodge up, right? They then use an area effect. It removes it. He counterattacks and then puts dodge up again. So then the next turn or next round, he still has dodge up. And then if they don't kill him, his trait's going to proc again and put dodge up again. So this is a pretty good change. I'm really excited about this. It's just gravy for me as a Kasim user. So I'm happy about that. All right, and we're coming towards the end here, guys. God Fairy is getting a buff as well, a pretty good buff. This S1, this defense down 1, is going to defense down 2, so very nice. And then this S3 mastery is getting changed from 50% chance to steal an extra positive effect to 100%. So if God Fairy is booked, it will be stealing 2 positive effects from characters on the ultimate. So that's pretty nice. So another hero that's getting a buff that I don't think needed one is getting a buff, and that's Rick. So Rick got a buff just recently with this increased damage dealt and this crit resistance whenever he's ascended, as well as doing additional damage on his ultimate. But now he's getting another buff where his counterattack is going from 120% unbooked up to 180. So his counterattacks when he's booked are going to be doing 190% damage while ignoring defense up, damage reduction, and shield. So this is big. Like, Rick was already a really good character. He could like one-shot a lot of really good tanks. And on top of that, he actually is getting a buff to his S3 as well, where ignoring 50% of the target's defense is going to 80%. This guy's going to be a menace. Like, he will be able to take out Ataras, he'll be able to take out Thor, he'll be able to take out Nero. Man, it is big. I if it were up to me, I'd probably book this guy out and ascend him if I didn't have to worry about Rift of Chaos. That's a huge, huge buff. All right, so Avera is getting a buff as well. Avera. Oh, she's in Free Cities. Okay. Yeah, so another OG kind of legendary, which is kind of cool. So you've seen Hydrisia, you've seen Valeria, Mulhex, Avera, all nice things. So she's also going to base speed 112, which is nice. Her trait ability goes from damage increasing from 40 to 60 to 40 to 80. Again, I think this is just for the new heroes. Older heroes for the new players. You know, she's in that rookie summon. I think this is a really nice green AoE damage dealer, but at the same time, you know, you still get the ninja guy, Hitachi. So, these changes I don't think really do anything. But she does increase her damage multiplier from 100% to 120. And then she also has this 30% chance of bleeding to 100%. So, I mean, not bad changes, but I don't think it increases her playability at all. So another hero that's getting a pretty nice buff is Savannah. So Savannah has this trait where it goes from 50% to 100%. Apparently now this was random, and now it's going to the person with the highest attack. This is huge for any kind of team compositions. Also, I think she's a pretty nice pick in RTA. If you build her high damage, she has enough damage to really hit hard. So she can't go unchecked, which is really nice. And then on top of that, once you kill her, she's going to put her attack on the person with the highest attack. So if you have some kind of bruiser comp, this is a really cool change. And then on top of that, her S3, this whole like max stacks 2, this is now going to 3. I don't think this changes anything specifically, but I guess it does make her more of a threat, where if this goes unchecked or whatever. I think this is more along the lines of some kind of composition for maybe for Rift of Chaos, where you're adding... Oh, actually, I'm just like, man, on the surface now, the fact that this will go to like Hyunwoo, man, this could be really good. This could be really good for Rift of Chaos, to be honest. So, yeah, those revenge stacks actually might matter. Cool. Yeah, good change. Savannah is going to be interesting. And the fact that she's fusible is actually really nice. All right. We got 2 more people. So, Yolanda, her trait got changed where this guard ability to kind of save people now can't be removed, so nice change. She's also an underrated hero. Very, very fast, which I think is not respected, but she's a very strong character still. And then her S3, she's getting an even bigger shield, which I thought the shield was fine. And her S3 mastery is just more shield. So good changes because she was already a strong character. And then this guy, Frenric. This guy's, he's like the green version of Elune. He just always sucks. So he's getting more health, more speed, whatever. His trait, I guess he's getting increased damage on his rage is now going up to 30% whenever it's ascended, and then it's 25% baseline, I guess, whatever. And then also his ascended trait, he'll gain 1 rage at the beginning of the turn. I don't see this making any change, and then his damage increases, his percentage, but I think he's still useless. So those are all the changes, guys. I know it was a long one. That's typically how my videos are, so if you haven't seen my content before, that's what you're getting into. Let me know what you think of the changes. I think there's some really good ones. And then obviously with any balance patch, there's going to be plenty of characters that they do minor tweaks to, and it's just not going to make a difference. But there's definitely some really nice changes. I think Savannah is a nice change. I think it could switch up some of the landscape of team compositions, whether it's dungeons or Rift of Chaos. Rick, I think, is a real threat in Arena nowadays. I do like the change to Kasim. I do think it's kind of small. I don't think it's going to be a real game changer, although people who want to use him without the Ascension, I think, can use him now. I think Tashir was a nice change as well. And then, Abaddon was nice, as well as Evelyn first on. So those are my thoughts, guys. Let me know yours, and I'll catch you on the next one.